is Nothing But Truth. Nothing But Truth on AFR Talk.
Put a smile on your face. Information is coming out through the mainstream media way late and actually exposing their own bias and malpractice. Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Happy Monday. Don't have a case of them. Stay away from the fax machine. AFR Talk. You can go to the Facebook page of Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk. You could also give yourself a big pat on the back and say, thank you. We have a good big thank you for listening, praying for us during Share-a-thon, 1.9 million raised. And thank you, Jesus, for all of that in the immortal words of Kurt Warner. We go now to our good friend, the co-director of Benghazi 9-11.com. Well, it's actually just called Benghazi 9/11. Buzz Jacobs joins us. Buzz, welcome.
Thank you, Crane. Thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on all the money you raised for the Share-a-thon. That's really fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have an extraordinary team here, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And as you know, it's a team effort, and people are starting to realize, even those who possibly weren't engaged before are starting to get engaged because they're seeing the consequences of these policies. And I'll leave it at that, because we have certainly seen the consequences of the lies of Benghazi, and we were brought into those once again in the sense of really the emotion and the, well, I would say the extraordinary importance of telling the truth when it comes to these issues and getting to the truth when it comes to Americans dying in defense of their country when they are attacked. Buzz, I broke this up a bit. Let's begin. We have Gregory Hicks. Tell me who Gregory Hicks is. He was interviewed last night by Laura Logan of 60 Minutes.
Sure. He was the number 2 American official in Libya at the time of Ambassador Stevens' death. And then, of course, when Ambassador Stevens was murdered, he became the number 1. He was his deputy, essentially, Ambassador Stevens' deputy.
Okay. Now, he is... The story goes last night through General Wood as well as others who participated in the interviews by Laura Logan, that they knew that senior al-Qaeda leader Abu Anas al-Libi was in Libya, tasked, and this is Laura Logan narrating, tasked by the head of al-Qaeda to establish a clandestine terrorist network inside the country. Al-Libi was already wanted for his role in the bombing of 2 U.S. embassies in the late 90s. Here is Gregory Hicks when he was made aware of this information, and, well, how did you react and respond knowing that this man was in Libya? Roll it.
It was a frightening piece of information.
Because it meant what?
It raised the stakes, changed the game.
And in that environment, you were asking for more security assets, and you were not getting them.
That's right.
Did you fight that?
I was in the process of trying to frame a third request, but it was not allowed to go forward.
So why didn't you get the help that you needed and that you asked for?
I really don't know. I, in fact, would like to know the answer to that question.
Buzz, this tells me that they knew an attack was coming. They had previous attacks. So when we had Mitt Romney ask the president about this in an October 16th debate, where he said to the president, well, let's hear this exchange, because many point to this as Obama trumping Romney with information. Roll it.
Governor, if you want to reply quickly to this, please.
I certainly do. I think it's interesting. The president just said something which is that on the day after the attack, he went to the Rose Garden and said that this was an act of terror. That's what I said. You said in the Rose Garden, the day after the attack, it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
He did call it an act of terror. It did as well take 2 weeks or so for the whole idea of there being a riot out there about this tape to come out. You're correct about that.
The administration indicated that this was a reaction to a video and was a spontaneous reaction.
They did.
It took them a long time to say this was a terrorist act by a terrorist group.
Buzz, when you hear that, we have evidence on September 12th, the president interviewed by Steve Kroft asked directly if it was a terrorist attack or not. That was October 16th. And here is what the president said when asked directly about this attack. He said it in the Rose Garden after the attack, immediately following the attack, or relatively close to the attack in that day. But yet, that night, he's interviewed by Steve Kroft, and he says, well, here's the exchange. Roll it.
Mr. President, this morning you went out of your way to avoid the use of the word terrorism in connection with the Libya attack.
Right.
Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about, what group was involved, but obviously it was an attack on Americans. And we are going to be working with the Libyan government to make sure that we bring these folks to justice, one way or the other.
This has been described as a mob action, but there are reports that they were very heavily armed with grenades.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like your normal demonstration.
Right. As I said, we're still investigating exactly what happened. I don't want to jump the gun on this, but you're right that this is not a situation that was exactly the same as what happened in Egypt. And my suspicion is that there are folks involved in this who were looking to target Americans from the start. So we're going to make sure that our first priority is to get our folks out safe, make sure that our embassies are secured around the world, and then we are going to go after those folks who carried this out.
Buzz, break down what we just heard, because I know this is huge news. Tell me why this exposes why this is news.
Well, let's break down the good, the bad, and ugly of what 60 Minutes did. Well, the good is that they did a story on Benghazi, and I think probably pretty much stops there. They reaffirmed what those of us who have been paying attention already knew. There were warnings that people on the ground knew immediately it was an Al-Qaeda attack, which is what you're alluding to, I think. That's the big news
part
here.
Of it.
That contradicts the president. And that Ambassador Stevens asked for help but never got it. There's another part of it, because that's what the interview confirmed. Again, for those of us paying attention like Ukraine and your listeners, we already knew this for quite a long time. That's the good. The bad, that there was no mention of 60 Minutes' own failure to not air a critical interview with the president prior to the election. I mean, that was a major failure on their part, and there was no apology even to the American people for screwing that up. So that's part of the bad. I mean, they completely glossed over the failures of Obama and Hillary Clinton, and then you get to the ugly, which is something that I don't think really a lot of people have talked about yet, but I think probably will as more people dissect this interview. But 60 Minutes kind of cut the tape in a way that made it seem like Lieutenant Colonel Wood was blaming Ambassador Stevens for his own death, and that is, which I don't think he was doing, but, that is it, for being in Benghazi, it was this, is that Colonel Wood warned Ambassador Stevens, he said this in the interview, and then, of course, Ambassador Stevens apparently didn't listen, and then, oh my goodness.
Right, and I want to get to that. Pardon me for interrupting, but here's the, no, because there's so much of it, and this is, no apologies necessary. Ladies and gentlemen who have maybe just joined the conversation, maybe this is the first time you're hearing about Benghazi. Maybe you've heard people say, hey, somebody didn't tell the truth. Maybe you're just getting this. Maybe you've been following it all along, like Buzz, like me, and so many other Americans. But keep in mind, what we just exposed was the president lied. He knowingly misled the American people during that debate, and Candy Crowley abetted him in doing that. Now, Romney could have said, hey, you said it 4 paragraphs earlier and just stuck to the Rose Garden speech. But the tape that you heard, the video you saw, was of Steve Kroft, September 12th. After that night, that morning, President spoke in the Rose Garden. He was asked directly, hey, you didn't call it a terrorist attack. You didn't call it. They knew al-Libi was there. They knew everything that we know now. They knew in the sense of the attacks. They knew it was coming. They had people information that it was building, and they knew that he was there to do this, to attack. That's what they knew. They said they didn't know. And then President Obama said during that debate, I did call it that. He lied to the American people about the deaths of 4 Americans. I do not say this a lot about President Obama of lying, knowingly misleading the American people. He lied to you. He lied to me. He lied about Benghazi. That is fact. That is truth. And we have the evidence now totally to prove it. Go ahead, sir.
That wasn't the only, on this issue, that's not the only time that he lied to the American people. I mean, he continued to do it. This spring, when he had a press conference in front of the entire White House press corps, he stood up there and said, when I was asked, and I think it was in response to a question from Ed Henry from Fox News, he said, I called Benghazi a terrorist attack the day after it happened. I mean, he lied about it again. That's not true. He did not do that, as we know. So it's a continued attempt from them to change the story. I mean, it's in Obama's interest to rewrite history now. It's in Hillary Clinton's interest to also rewrite history. And
let's talk about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, this is at the ceremony of the bodies coming back, the fallen Americans. And they're coming back, and she has given a speech on this. Remember, they know everything you've heard about al-Libi. They knew. They heard the warnings. They heard the security requests. They knew it was a terrorist attack. Here is Hillary Clinton. Roll it.
We've seen the heavy assault on our post in Benghazi that took the lives of those brave men. We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
Another lie. Another lie. Here is one more. She's asked directly by Senator Johnson, Wisconsin, about this, about how they knew it was a terrorist attack. Why'd they blame the video? Her response, Senate hearing this past year, roll it.
Not the fact.
But
and the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator.
Buzz, take on that question. What difference does it make?
What difference does it make? Well, she says that that's their job to figure out what happened, and it's true. It's their job, but it's also the Congress's job. So why has the administration done everything in its power to prevent the survivors of the attack from testifying to Congress? If they really want to get to the bottom of this, well, let's have a bipartisan select committee made up of senators and members of the House, and let's get to the bottom of this. Let's do a thorough investigation. Let's leave no stone unturned. Let's make sure that everybody's held accountable as should be. But yet here we are, over a year later, no accountability, no justice. Hillary Clinton's moved on. Barack Obama's moved on. They dismiss it as a right-wing conspiracy. And all I can say is at least thank God that 60 Minutes had the guts to at least defy their liberal friends in the mainstream press and to do at least a 1-inch deep overview of Benghazi and to at least keep it at the forefront, because at least we have an opportunity to talk about it again, and hopefully a lot of Americans were sitting in their living rooms last night watching it and questioning some of these things. Like you said, we pay attention to it every day. We knew a lot about what was in that story, but there's probably a lot of people that don't know it, and I would contend there's a heck of a lot more people that still don't know it. And that's why we're working on our movie project, because our goal is to make sure every American who has the opportunity to hear about this story in a short, concise, hour-and-a-half presentation that will capture their imagination in a way that will make them demand answers.
And Buzz, we're going a little over. Can you stick with us right now?
Sure.
Great. All right, here's Gregory Hicks once again, a little later on in the interview, speaking to the issue of help not arriving that night. And that goes into a lot of questions that Buzz is going to ask after this clip. Here he is responding to finding out that help was not going to arrive. Roll it.
I just couldn't believe the answer. And then I made the call to the NX chief. I told him, listen, you've got to tell those guys there may not be any help coming.
That's a tough thing to understand. Why?
It just is. For us, for the people that go out onto the edge to represent our country, we believe that if we get in trouble, they're coming to get us. That our back is covered. To hear that it's not, it's a terrible, terrible experience.
So, speaking to Tyrone Woods, Glenn Doherty, Chris Stevens, the victims of Benghazi, no help arriving, the two SEALs actually disobeying and going into the fire. Tell me something. There are a number of questions. Give me the questions we need to be asking, Buzz. Go.
Well, let's start. Where was the president during the attack? Is it true? Did he go to bed? Why wasn't he more involved? Why didn't he bring his team around the National Security Council table and in the Situation Room and make them do everything they could to help? Where are the survivors of the attack? You know, as I mentioned before, to date there are over 30 people that have been kept from the U.S. Congress and the public. Where are they? Where were our military assets? Yeah, we've heard that there's apparently been some classified briefings to members of Congress. Well, nobody has trust in our government right now and in Congress because Congress approval ratings at all-time lows. So prove to us, the American people, that they couldn't respond when so many people, generals and admirals and special forces officers, have said that something could have been done. There's been no public accounting. Why did the administration, for the better part of 2 weeks, lie about who was behind the attack? Why hasn't anyone been held accountable for the failures related to Benghazi? There are many. There's intelligence failures. There were leadership failures. There were communications failures. No one has been held accountable. And why was Ambassador Stevens in Benghazi? And we still don't know who wouldn't authorize the military to respond from Tripoli, from the Special Forces Detachment that was told to, effectively stand down. We don't know who gave that order. And my understanding is that has to come from a very senior place, either the Secretary of Defense or the President. Again, no accounting. I mean, there's so many questions that remain unanswered, and I'm glad to hear today that at least one senator said that he was going to hold up all future nominations until we got some more answers on Benghazi. I hope that he's committed to that, and I hope he does it.
Was that Graham by chance? Or?
That was, yeah, Senator
Okay.
Graham, Lindsey Graham.
Well, maybe he is getting the message, but Sean Smith and Chris Stevens and Tyrone Woods and others who have been impacted by this. We sit there, Glenn Doherty, pardon me. I got to tell you, it's not, obviously we have dead Americans, we have wounded Americans, we don't have the truth from our president, and when asked about it in front of the nation, when everybody was watching, he looked at the nation and he lied. So did Hillary Clinton. Now, I don't know what kind of friends and relationships happen up in Washington where you can excuse this kind of thing and look beyond it. I'll tell you, Buzz, I love you like a brother. But if you were responsible or in some way doing this to the American people, okay, as reprehensible as it is, and I sit back and I say, well, yeah, but I can talk to you about other things. No, I'm going to get answers, and I would hope you would do the same for me or anybody before I continue a conversation with you. That's why I'm confused, John McCain and others, with Hillary Clinton. The idea that she is thinking of running for president, and we still have this right here and now. The idea that President Obama has not been held to account what you have been pushing for. And this is why Benghazi 9-11.com. That's where you need to go, and I'll put it up on the Facebook page. Benghazi 9-11.com is so important. Buzz, real quick, as we wrap this segment up, but we obviously will come back to it time and time again, you tell me, what can people expect out of the movie, out of the documentary?
Well, what we've been working on, we started working on this project nearly a year ago, last November, and it's quite a complex process. And honestly, Crane, it is a more complex and challenging endeavor than even I had first envisioned. But I'm glad to be doing it, and I'm so committed to this project. I'm extremely committed to it. We're continuing to bring our team together. We need some additional help from the folks with the resources to support a big project like this. I mean, it's very expensive to make a movie that's worthy of the American people, that's worthy of this story and these people who have sacrificed for us. It's very expensive to make a story of the quality. So we need the support of people. We need your backing and your help. So we would appreciate it if you can help us in this endeavor. We're committed to it. We will continue to be committed to it, and I'm not going to stop until we get this project done. And what's the story of Benghazi going to be? It's going to be a story about the failures to prepare, about the intelligence failures, about the failures not having our military assets in place, about an administration who wants to cover up the truth, and that's nothing you're ever going to hear from the mainstream press. It's a story about protecting of what was done to protect Obama's legacy and Hillary Clinton's presidential ambitions. It's a story about the mainstream media's failure. It's a story about how no one has been arrested, has not been fired, about how the president has moved on, how Hillary Clinton has moved on, how the mainstream media has moved on, how no one has heard from the survivors. I mean, our goal is to make sure that every American knows this story, that we can summarize it in a way that gives everybody the opportunity to understand this very complex, long, drawn-out story now in a short, concise manner that gives them the truth. It makes them want to demand answer for these questions. It makes them want to hold Congress and the president accountable for not getting us answers. I mean, we're Americans, and this is our country, and it's our government, and the mother, Sean Smith's mother, Tyrone Wood's father, have said they want answers. We should do everything we can to support them to make sure they get those answers.
And bottom line, I would simply ask you all to check out Benghazi 9-11.com. That's all I would like you to do. Just check it out. And I put it up on the Facebook page. Right now, I'm going to click it. It just says, Learn the Truth About Benghazi. And posting it now, Buzz Jacobs, co-director. Thank you, my friend. Great to be with you. And
thank you.
I think what you're doing is obviously so important. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Crane, thank you for keeping this issue alive.
Absolutely.
People like you are so important in this story, and I think everybody has a debt of gratitude for what you've done and some of your colleagues in the conservative press. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. So, look, if you think about how big this is, I can't really explain it to you on the importance of this, but I would like you to think of each and every time you hear a leader speak of the troops and the people supporting us. If this is not made right, if there is not justice, if the truth does not come out, and justice, I mean through the legal channels, absolutely. What we have sent a message not only to the world that we are weak. Al-Libby, I know they've got an Al-Libby. That's not my point. The point, there's so much more to this. If we don't send the word, we've sent the message as we go to break that we are weak, that we won't take care of our own. And not only that, we've sent the message that those who are serving, and every time we talk about putting the troops first, I don't know how you make that statement without following through on this and telling the American people the truth. I don't dislike President Obama, and it's not about a personal thing. I will say this. His behavior, as well as Hillary Clinton's in this arena, is despicable. And if the press wants any credibility and they want to save American lives, in the sense of sending the message for justice and truth. They need to cooperate. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.